Yeah, right. So again, good evening, all whoever joined in late. So I took some time today to start because I've been seeing were some issues with some minor exam that was going on for the other section. Okay, even I will be leaving you early today, not till 7 p.m. as you have to prepare for your minor exam even for tomorrow. And I think you have your FEM exam on Saturday. Okay, just make a quick review of what we have taken up yesterday. So we started with the first topic. Okay, I'll also share the syllabus also. I'll turn off my camera as well. Yeah, I'll just again put back that slide, that PDF. So we started with stress and strain, and we would cover the basic stress and strain, and very important, engineering stress, true stress. Very important, very important, because these might not be have been covered in the course, in the invoice course we have studied. But actually, we have to look at those two topics, true stress and engineering stress. Very important. And we could cover almost every aspect of stress and just stress and strain. So, what different types of strains we have stresses. We have seen about tensile stress, compressive stress, and shear stress, and corresponding tensile strain, compressive strain, and shear strain. So, tensile, we have an elongation effect. Compressive, we have a shortening effect, and shear strain when we have distortion in the shape, shear stress. So we have a shear stress, shearing effect. So those were the types of stresses that we have taken up. So normally we'll deal in more type of stresses when we get into design part, the machine design. Yeah, where we get into design for static and dynamic loading in machine design, there we more elaborately read about different types of stresses, like I've been saying about the direct stresses and indirect stresses, combined stresses. So there we will learn in more detail about the different types of stresses. But as of now, the simple as an introduction to stress and strain, we have taken up three different types of stresses: tensile stress, compressive and shear stress, and the corresponding strains. And in stress component, we have seen both type: engineering stress and true stress. And how do we link up? We also seen by means of few empirical relations. We also seen how do we relate the true stress with engineering stress. Those are very important to be remembered in exam. In GATE exam, we expect such questions. And the strategy would be like you should be prepared for any kind of questions. If you are reading about stress and strain, you must know everything about stress and strain, because these things are very simple to understand and very easy to remember. So you must be able to be in a position to answer any kind of question, because hardly most of the formula are known to you. The one new that was dealt yesterday was that relationship between true stress and engineering stress. If I stop, I just okay. And remaining topic will cover these two today: the elastic constants and Poisson's ratio. And coming back to that discussion, what I was telling about the strategy, how we have to, yeah. Now these things are already known to you, like general expression for stress, general definition, and types of stress, compressive, shear, and strain. These things are already known to you, though we had again studied them study again. These are maybe some people might have already read out of their anxiety, maybe at the time when they have taken the subject during the regular coursework. These things might not have been studied elaborately. Now this is the time we need to take some time, put some effort knowing these things, which are very important, because we may expect the questions of this kind only. How do we link up? This is true stress with engineering stress. Again, true strain with engineering strain. These are the only new things what I feel we have learned, other than what we have already learned in the regular course. True stress and true strain connected with engineering stress and engineering strain. So remember these expressions, very important. And we already have seen these curves: true stress strain curve and engineering stress strain curve. And how do we relate the ultimate tensile strength? How do we relate when there is necking, when there is no necking? We have seen with the help of some examples. Now coming to elastic constants. Now putting aside the term elastic, if you speak about a constant, mathematically, how a constant is defined, it is defined as a parameter which relates to variables. Two variables in the sense, one is a dependent variable, one is independent variable. We need to understand that way. So constant is a parameter which is, as the name says, it is a constant. It doesn't change. The value of that parameter does not change, or value of that field, whichever we call it as a constant, will not change. Rather, it is used as a connection between, or establishing a relationship between two variables, out of which one is independent and one is dependent. So that when I speak in general, how do we define constant in mathematics? So same way, still as the next step is to learn about the constants, elastic constants. For that, we need to first look into this law called Hooke's law. Again, this has been quite familiar to you till now, because most of you are third years and fourth years. Like all the students are from third years and fourth years. So this was already known to you, or you might have studied in your MOS. Many places you get this Hooke's law, not only in MOS, but if you go into machine design also, design of machine element, design of transmission systems, and even in linkages also, you might have come across the Hooke's law. So according to Hooke's law, stress is directly proportional to strain, whether it is a normal stress or a shearing stress. So whatever kind of stress, normal stress, the stress is directly proportional to strain. Stress is directly proportional to strain, and that constant which relates that stress and strain is called as an elastic constant. Those constants, we have three such constants. So those relate the shearing stress and shearing strain, we call as shear modulus. Modulus of elasticity, shear modulus. Try to remember, easy, very easy, very. The constant which relates, establish a relationship between stress, normal stress and normal strain, we call it as modulus of elasticity. And the constant which relates the shear stress and shear strain, we call it as shear modulus. Modulus of rigidity. That's what is said here. Shear modulus of elasticity. You can omit this if you are getting confused to remember getting confused between modulus of elasticity and shear modulus of elasticity. You can omit these words. You can directly remember as coefficient E is called as modulus of elasticity and its resistance to elastic strain. In other words, its resistance, the material's resistance to elastic strain, is also called as modulus of elasticity. The coefficient G is called as shear modulus. Hope you all know this. Just we are recalling what we have studied, but I am not using any stress strain curve here because again, okay, since it is very basic topic, you see actually there is no straight line shown here because actually there should have been an inclined line like this. Using which we can would have said that stress is proportional to strain with an elastic limit. Actually, even that word or phrase is not included here. So this has been given in generalized this statement. In general, actual technical statement, if you look at the Hooke's law, it is given as stress is directly proportional to strain within elastic limit. That has to be added. But here it has been, the statement has been given in more general way. Okay, put that aside as of now, but remember with the phrase within elastic limit, that is correct, obviously. And now coming to volumetric strain, as the name says, strain related to volume. Without seeing the definition, we can simply make an assumption or anticipation or wild guess it is change in volume by original volume. A relationship similar to that of a length changes holds for three-dimensional volume. So that's what I've been saying. A strain is a strain. If it is a what do you say, a linear strain or lateral strain or a volumetric strain. So for volumetric strain, the relationship is V minus V naught by V naught, or delta V by V naught. So delta V is change in volume, V naught is original volume. And it is also taken as P by K, where P is, it should be pressure upon bulk modulus, P by K. Here where V is the final volume, if you take this expression, V is the final volume and V naught is the original volume and delta V is the volume K. And volumetric strain is also of no units. It is also dimension. So the strain, whenever you speak of strain, there is no units. So even volumetric strain is also defined as the algebraic sum of all the strains in the respective coordinate axis. So it is equal to the algebraic sum of epsilon x, strain in x direction, strain in y direction, strain in z direction. Or if it is strain in a principal strain, we will get this maybe in the next topic. More circle, principal stress along principal axis. If you are known with the quantities of shear strain, strain along principal axis, we call them as principal strain. It's epsilon 1, epsilon 2, epsilon 3. Here it is sum of all the principal strains. Yeah, dilation. This is very important. Normally we come across this. So hydrostatic component of the total stress. This is more like a technical thing. Okay, I'll make it simple. Hydrostatic component of total stress contributes to deformation. Hydrostatic component. Look at the word hydro and static. Hydro relates to liquid and static means steady. Component of total stress. Hydrostatic component of the total stress contributes to deformation. So for a total stress, there is a component called hydrostatic component. I'll come to that. Deformation by changing the area or volume in 3 dimensions. It's an object. So what is hydrostatic component? For example, if we take a body subjected to stress in all the 3 directions, x, y, and z, and all the intensity is the same along x, only direct stress. I'm not talking about the shear stress component, but when we have equal normal direct stress, sigma x, sigma y, sigma z, if we denote the stress in all directions, sigma x, sigma y, and sigma z, okay? And if that sigma x, sigma y, sigma z are equal without a shear strain component, now it will compress. Now the total stress contains direct stress and indirect stress, means direct normal stress and also shear stress component, out of which if you take the hydrostatic component out of that total stress, we can give a statement that hydrostatic component contributes to deformation. Like you imagine a cube being pressed by 3 sides, x and y and z, with the same intensity. Now it gets compressed. Now that is what is said here. Area or volume gets changed. And that change is called as dilation. You can relate this word with dilute. Maybe both are not same. Please don't take them as meanings, synonyms. But I just want to remember easily. You know what is the meaning of a dilute? Whenever we take a concentrated liquid, we put some water. We call that as a dilute solution or a diluted liquid. The same way, when the volume changes or gets diluted, we call as a dilation. You can remember that way. Only for the sake of remembrance, I am saying using that example, but don't take it as synonym. And it is positive, it may be positive or negative. No, actually, the perfect example of hydrostatic component is a buoyancy force. So you might have come across this buoyancy force when you immerse a body in a liquid. Now, the liquid exerts in a water. In a water, when you immerse a body in water, the water exerts force on that body in all directions, and that force will be equal because it's only the water that is causing that effect. So that is a pure example of a hydrostatic component, but that is all compressive in nature. only compressive stress. That is pure hydrostatic. That's why the name given hydrostatic, because it resembles that kind of stress, buoyancy, that kind of force, buoyant force. Everybody, the popular Archimedes law. When you immerse in a body in water, the displaced water volume will be equal to the volume of the body. As volume increases or decreases respectively. Now E is same. That should be actually the volumetric strain. P by K. P is that pressure, that hydrostatic pressure, by K, where K is a bulk modulus. This is one bulk modulus. Since the word says bulk, it relates to volume. So try to remember, volumetric strain EV is also taken as this E should be P by K, where P is a pressure, that is hydrostatic pressure. Now again, redefining those elastic constants. No, I'm not into the constants. Why we call it elastic constants? Because these are related to elastic numbers. Elastic bodies are deformable bodies. So that's why we call them as elastic constants. And E is equal to stress by strain. Or if you further apply the Hooke's law, we can PL by A delta. And modulus of rigidity, shear stress by shear strain. And again, bulk modulus. This is K is equal to delta P. Actually, this is a hydrostatic component of pressure. And delta V by Y is volumetric strain. And also delta R by R. Actually, it is change in radius. We don't look into this formula much. I try to remember delta P. Actually, that should have been P, pressure, hydrostatic pressure. There is no component like change in pressure, but it should have been delta P by EV. Means epsilon V, volumetric strain, delta V by V, change in volume. Right? So this is numerator is delta P only. This is denominator. Delta V by V is the denominator. Delta P is the denominator, numerator. Sorry. Why minus? Because we are expecting a change as a negative. Okay, bulk modulus, shear modulus, and Young's modulus. Now we all know this relations between like elastic constants E, G, K, and U. Actually, this Poisson's ratio is also elastic constant. Poisson's ratio is called as the ratio of lateral strain to the radius strain. Okay, this is explained here. Well and for yeah, this is the next topic is that only. Now try to remember again. Few in this I'll share this PDF maybe 1 or 2 days when I finish my lectures from this book. So these highlighted formulae, whenever you start practicing for the GATE examination, write them in your some paper, whatever you are taking. You are using the source for preparation. You write somewhere. Now E is equal to 2G into 1 plus nu, or 3K into 1 minus 2 nu, or mu is here, or 9 kg by 3K plus G. Almost all the three formulae will come across somewhere or other. So try to remember these formulae. And we already know K is bulk modulus, mu is Poisson's ratio, E is Young's modulus. Try to remember this. Now we are not wasting the time in knowing the derivations. How do we got them? We are nowhere concerned. But already you have done this in your regular coursework, meaning MOS relationship between G and E, K and E, and E, G and K. So that is what you know, very important. A note has been also given here, very important. E is equal to 2G into 1 plus mu, 3K into 1 minus 2 mu, 9 kg by 3K plus G. Very important. And for linearly elastic, isotropic and homogeneous material, the number of elastic constants required to relate stress and strain is only 2. Hence, out of these 4, if we know only any 2, we can establish a relationship between stress and strain. So, need not know all the 4. At least 2 must be known. And if the material is non-isotropic, what do we mean by non-isotropic or anisotropic? Means for an isotropic material, the properties are equal in all directions, same. In the sense like along X, the Young's modulus is 200 gigapascal. Along Y, Young's modulus is 200 gigapascal only, and along Z also 200 gigapascal. So the Young's modulus does not change with respect to any directions or any planes or any coordinate system. But it's a non-isotropic. All composite materials. People who are doing their projects on composite materials, all the fourth years or people in third year who are working on composite materials, all composite materials are orthotropic. In the sense, property vary along 90 degrees because they are having a resin and laminates. So if the material is non-isotropic, the elastic moduli will vary. So even we have E1, E2, E3. If you get into composites and all, if somebody is interested in taking composites as the elective, maybe you can do it as a MOOCs course. And the elastic moduli will vary with additional stresses appearing since there is a coupling between the shear stress and normal stress. Yeah, this is out of our reach as of now. We are only concerned with isotropic materials, but if we have to read about non-isotropic, what would be the condition? Like then there is no question of any elastic constants. Rather, they will vary with additional stresses appearing. So whatever we take the formula here, delta epsilon by E, we may not have the same formula. Rather, we may get delta plus something. Sigma plus is delta sigma. Some more additional stress component. Some more additional stress component. Some more additional stress component. So that might be included because since there is a coupling. So here shear stress is nowhere dependent on linked to normal stress. But when you go to our anisotropic materials, there is a relation. Coupling in the sense there is a relationship. Like it's not a relationship, but if there is a additional stress that is developed because that will also create additional shear stress. So when normal stress increases, shear stress will also increase or increase or may decrease. So that's the kind of coupling. Now this is a simple example. I'm not okay. I'll just throw some light on it. So this is what I've seen this question in one of the papers, but way back in 2015 or 16 paper. But this was asked maybe in the last 3 years. I didn't find any question, but I found this question. This formula being used many times in some of the when we get into this principal stresses problem, we need this or rosette strain rosettes. We need this. We may not get direct questions on these relationships, but we might have to use this relationship somewhere or other in solving the problem. So, like as I said, in strain rosettes, strain gauges, and when we deal the topic with what I will say, principal stresses or theories of failure, you might need this when you get into machine design. So these formulas are very useful. That's why that was highlighted as very important. Now here we have to find all elastic modulus. We are given with modulus of E is given, G is given. Now we have to find all the other. Mu is found, K is found. We are given with E and G. We have to find remaining. So that's about elastic constants, out of which this was not discussed. Only all the remaining 3 K, G and E were discussed. Now coming to Poisson's ratio, we already are familiar. It is the ratio of a lateral. Lateral means other directions. For example, if the load is applied in this direction, we call this direction as longitudinal direction or the linear. So if the strain is measured along the line of action of force, we call that as a linear strain or longitudinal strain. And as you are all aware that when it is getting expanded, other dimensions, length is getting expanded. But since the volume is not changing, until it goes beyond necking, then only the volume there will be change in the volume. But till the point of necking, there will not be no change in the volume. So when length is increasing, it should be compensated. How? The diameter gets decreased. The length increase means diameter gets decreased. So that change in the diameter Dimension in other direction, we call it as lateral strain. Always it is given priority, so that's why you remember that way. That's why it is kept in numerator. Anyhow, we are applying the load and we are measuring the displacement along the load. That is always we are doing it. That's why we give a minimum priority. So we put it on the denominator. But since because of this load, other dimensions are getting affected. That's why we are putting them on numerator. You can remember that way. Lateral strain. It is minus because there is an increase in length but decrease in diameter. So that's why we have a negative. Always linear lateral strain. Most of the cases would be negative. Yeah, this is transverse strain or lateral strain by longitudinal or linear strain. So this expression can be applied, is valid for unidirectional stress, means stress along one direction only, that is in x direction. The theory of isotropic elasticity, again isotropic means properties are same in all directions, allows Poisson's ratio in the range -1 to half. Isotropic elasticity, remember. This might be a question. The theory of isotropic elasticity allows Poisson's ratio in the range from -1 to half. So some numbers have to be remembered. Like for example, it was very tough for me remembering some numericals, especially in metal cutting. In metal cutting science, we need to remember few speeds, cutting speeds, range of cutting speed specified for some specific metal. So it was little difficult for me to remember a lot of things at the time, but now I think these days people are remembering them very easily. But some numbers we have to remember like this that we have shown, but normally we take it from 0.2 to 0.5. You see, Poisson's ratio varies in various metals. Yeah, you see steel 0.25 to 0.33 and cast iron little bit low. Concrete again goes on low because it doesn't expand. Because the numerator should be high. Numerator should be high, then only we'll have a higher value. Steel is more ductile or malleable, so it has little more value. Cast iron is brittle. We don't have much higher value. Concrete is again a brittle material, so we have a less value. But rubber it elongates very much, so it is having higher value of Poisson's ratio. Cork means it never have any transverse strain, so that becomes 0. So novel forms is a new trend. Novel means new. Negative means the numerator will be higher than denominator. It fall below 0. Yeah, we use cork in a bottle as a cork easily gets inserted and removed, yet it also withstands the pressure within the bottle. So that's why cork with the Poisson's ratio of nearly 0 is ideal. That's the reason why we use a cork. You might have seen some cork. I don't know how many people have come across cork. So if I think I'll just finish this and wind up for today's. How much is left? Okay, I'll just take more 10 minutes. Tomorrow I'll start temperature stress. Yeah, this is again a little bit more time to be spent. Okay, coming back to Poisson's ratio. What is this biaxial stretching of sheet? When you take a sheet means thickness will be very low. It has a length and breadth, but a very less thickness. So we call that a sheet. Now, in that case, when we apply a load in one direction, there will be a biaxial stretching because we have a thickness being very low. Now that becomes initial original length and final length. And yeah, this is strain in one direction, strain in the other direction. Yeah, this is because biaxial. stretching in two axes, along two axes. So this might be along length direction, this may be along width direction. Natural log ln LF1 by LO2, LO1. Why we have taken ln, not a simple change in length by original length? Because we have thickness being very low, so that's why we take a natural log. And this is, if this is a transverse strain, this should be linear strain. Or if it is taken as linear strain, this becomes lateral strain. It depends on the load application direction. And final thickness is, yeah, you see, initial thickness by e to the power epsilon 1 into e to the power epsilon. So it's a little complicated, but that's why no derivation has been given for this. Just try to remember when we have to deal with the dimensions or strains, to be more specific. We have to deal with strains of a biaxial stretching of a sheet in the sense where the thickness is very low. There the stretching becomes huge. So we have a logarithmic increment. That is why we take a natural logarithm. Normally there is a linear relationship between a stress change in dimensions and original dimensions. That's why we use a simple fraction. But when it comes to a sheet, stretching of a sheet, there exists a logarithmic variation. So that's why we go with the natural logarithm. That might be the reason I just browsing through why we use a natural logarithm. So that is the reason why I could find from some of the articles. So that you try to remember final by initial. Whatever this type of strain, even this is a strain for, if this is a linear strain, this becomes lateral strain. Or if this is a lateral strain, this becomes linear strain. So remember that way, depending on the direction given in the problem. Try to remember the final thickness, initial thickness by e to the power of epsilon 1 into epsilon 2. So that maybe this thing, now this is a really new thing. Even I am coming across for the first time, though I have read it sometime, but I have never looked it of so much with so much of importance. Okay, that was about a Poisson's ratio. Now coming to elongation, yeah, the prismatic bar loaded in tension by an axial force P. So P and what's the elongation can be determined. So these things you already know. Delta is equal to PL by AE. Simple. An example is taken for the explanation. Yeah, this is called as principle of superposition. I'm not. It's very simple. Only thing is we have to be very careful with the units. PL by A, everything is given. P is given. L is given. A is given. E is given. Everything is substituted in the formula, but everything is taken out with the units. When length is in meters, area is also taken in meters square. Modulus of velocity is also converted into Newton per meter square. So everything is taken in meters. That is the minimum K that is to be taken always to avoid any. Because you will find 2.55 in answers, also 255.55. You will find both answers. With, when we do with wrong units also, whatever answer we get, we'll find that answer also in the option. So you should be very careful in maintaining the consistency in the units. That's very important. So I'm not throwing so much of light on this because the only thing I'd like to mention about a very important point about it is you have to be very careful with maintaining the consistency of the units. That's simply elongation problem. But when we come with many steps, varying cross sections, that is what elongation of a bar with a varying cross section, then we apply a principle of superposition. So the total elongation for the same load and same material, so we just add them the individual elongation. PL1 by P1 L1 by, so if you have been a different load and different materials, then we use P1 E1 P1 L1 by E1. But if it's of the same load, but in the same on the same bar, which is only varying in the cross section. Yes, this is what is the formula, but for that we need to 1000 well and fine. So load is same and inch modulus is same. So simple. PB L1 is 300 mm. So here you see in this example, even he has put the units in the fraction to avoid confusion. So please spend some time, quality time in the examination for maintaining the consistency, because most of the design subjects, you can study hard, you can do a number of problems, you can practice number of problems. But thing is, maintaining the consistency is very important. So this is about principle of superposition. Now coming to elongation of a tapered body, now normally PL by AE is a formula. So there area is pi by 4 d square. Here pi by 4 d1 into d2. That's only the difference. So that is what I said here, PL by AE. So instead of A, we are taking an equivalent area pi by 4 d1 d2. Simple. Elongation of a tapered body. Instead of A, where we put A is equal to pi by 4 d square for a circular cross section. Here it is circular, but the diameter is changing from one location to other location. So that's why we put those two diameters for that length L. That's only the difference. Pi by 4 d1 d2. So again, it has been an example has been taken to solve this. Yeah, d2 at d1 and somewhere in the location x, that should be dx. How to find that dx? Again, we apply this what we call as a fractional interpolation. So this d1 by 2. So dx by 2, everything is taken into half. Okay, it's a lot of mathematics that is involved here. Yeah, I'll just finish with this. Okay, if I find some, because this is, you see here, actually I didn't read the question. So show that the extension produced, so this is a derivation. Extension produced by tensile load is 4, so we have to prove the same. So don't worry about any derivation part, because we are not writing any conventional type paper in GATE. Maybe in IES you might be asked with such question. IES contains even some conventional type questions. Conventional in the sense you have to write answers, you have to solve problems, you have to write theory essay type answers. But here in GATE everything is multiple choice, MCQs. Okay, need not worry about the derivation. So this is the derivation. I thought there is some problem, so that is the derivation. Coming to the last topic of today, elongation of a body due to its self-weight. Now again, WL, W means instead of P we are using W, because W is a self-weight. PL by AE. And instead of P we are using W by 2. Why? Because the deformation of its own weight as compared to that one subject to direct will be only half. W by 2 only. It's not W. Simply to have been WL by AE. But here a statement is given, already been proved, that deformation of a bar under its own weight as compared to that when subjected to a direct tensile axial load is equal to its own weight will be half. Like what the statement means that if the same body has subjected to an axial loading, that would be equal to half of this load. Why? Because if it is being hanged, when you are saying elongation of a body due to self-weight means it must have been hanged vertically, supported vertically. Because of the support, there is some reaction offered by the support, so that's why only half of the weight will be on the member. So that's why we take W by 2. And due to its own weight, with W, weight W per unit length, W per unit length. So if it is given as W per unit length, the total weight is WL. So WL into L, that becomes WL square, not a big deal. And conical bar, conical means same, tapered bar. Again, rho GL or W2L by rho GL square by 6 or WL by 2AE. Okay, just try to remember this formula. I'll put this PDF as soon as I finish the topics from this book. So that's about elongation of a body due to self weight. Direct weight is given W by 2. If it is weight per unit length, WL into L, that becomes W, small w. This is not omega, this is small w. And if it's a conical bar, rho is density, please. Rho g multiplied, we get mass density multiplied by acceleration due to gravity, we get W. Rho GL will get W, so that becomes WL. 2A max, means maximum area into G. Okay, so that's elongation of curve. Now coming to factor of safety. Structural members or machines must be designed such that the working stresses are less than the ultimate strength. So that is what we relate to the term factor of safety. So we have to design any structural member so that the maximum operating stress will not go beyond the ultimate stress, or even we should not go beyond yield stress. Why we are speaking? Not even to we have to think of ultimate stress. We should only limit our design stress to only yield stress, because when the operating stress crosses yield stress, it starts yielding. Yielding in the sense it starts deforming. When it starts deforming means it is failed. So working stress, yeah, that is what yield stress. Yield stress by factor of safety. So normally it is not taken beyond 2. But if we take ultimate stress into consideration, it will be 2 to 3. Proof stress, again it is a proof resilience, stress per unit volume, yeah, proof stress. So that's factor of safety, whether it is sigma y or sigma p or sigma ultimate, whatever may be the denominator, or sorry, numerator. Denominator will be the working stress. Maximum stress by working stress. Maximum stress in the sense either it's a yield strength or proof stress. Ultimate strength we use for brittle materials, because for brittle materials there will be no yield stress. For brittle materials fall without yielding, so there will be only ultimate stress. So for brittle materials we use in the denominator ultimate strength. For ductile materials we use sigma y, but some other elastic, like spring elements, will take a proof stress. But denominator would be always a working stress or applied stress, working stress, actual stress. So we could able to cover today in today's class about the elastic constants. I'll just review what we have been covered today, so that these things, we have covered Hooke's law, we have covered volumetric strain, elastic constants, relationship between elastic constant, very important Poisson's ratio, and elongation of a tapered body. Then again, elongation of a body due to self-weight and factor of safety. These things we have covered today. So it's almost 6:30. I'm now concluding my lecture for today. So maybe I have gone beyond the time I have wanted to. No problem. Prepare well for your manual examination. Again, we'll meet tomorrow.